Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. Amen. We love to watch them save the day and rescue the helpless. We love to watch them on the big screen or maybe on our screens at home. We love to watch superheroes in action. Some of the biggest Hollywood blockbusters, at least in the last few years, have been superhero movies. I mean, just in the last couple of years, audiences have packed theaters to see movies featuring Spider-Man, Thor, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Black Panther, The Avengers, and The Incredibles, just to name a few, and I'm pretty sure I missed a few in there too. And there's probably another 3, 4, 5 more superhero movies coming out later this year. Not to mention the TV shows that you can watch that also feature superheroes. Why do people like to watch superheroes? Why do they like to see them in action? Yeah, the special effects are really cool, and there's maybe Easter eggs and snarky humor, and maybe there's plot twists. That's exciting and interesting, but you can find that in other movies too. But perhaps all this love for superhero movies speaks to something more. Something deeper, a yearning in human hearts. A yearning for a hero to come in and save the day when we need rescue. Wouldn't it be great if superheroes were real? You have some problem in your life, something is going on, some big thing is scary or terrifying to you, and the superhero swoops in and saves the day. An asteroid threatens the Earth, and a superhero comes in and deflects it back out into space. A violent villain threatens a city. A superhero comes in and defeats it. Your loved one's in a burning building, a superhero swoops in and doesn't just put the fire out, but actually rescues your loved one without a scratch. Wouldn't it be nice if superheroes were real? Wouldn't it be nice if they could do more than just save the planet? Wouldn't it be great if they could do more than just saving the planet? That maybe they could just swoop in and fix your leaky finances. Or maybe they could reverse that terminal diagnosis for your loved one. Or maybe a superhero could replace your fear and uncertainty with hope and confidence. Wouldn't it be nice if a superhero could take the giant boulder of guilt or grief or heartache or hurt that threatens to crush your heart and backs it into the sky, gets rid of it, heaves it into space, never to come back to you again? Of course it would be nice. But even if superheroes are real, Superman or Iron Man or Wonder Woman or the Incredible Hulk really help you when you're afraid or worried or fearful or uncertain? Could they help you when you face those times when your will or your ability or any capacity you have to save yourself fails? After all, even the greatest superhero has his or her flaws. And they can't save everyone. So our world remains dark and uncertain. That is until Jesus quietly steps into our story. Jesus was tired. God was exhausted. He had been preaching and teaching and traveling and healing for days. Crowds, the small groups of disciples exploded into huge crowds that lined the shores of the Sea of Galilee to hear Jesus teach. They hung on his every word. He taught them with parables about faith, parables about faith that persists, faith that clings to him and to the Word of God. He taught about the power of the gospel to do what defies human comprehension or expectation, about the power of the gospel to bring life to the dead. He taught how the Christian life is a life of faith in him and in his word, and his disciples listened closely to everything he had to say. But Jesus was tired. Tired after a long day of teaching out in the sun on the lake. Our account here follows immediately after the lesson we heard last week from Jesus' teaching. Jesus is worn out. He's tired. So he asks his disciples to take him in the boat across the lake, away from the crowd so he could get some rest. listen to what Jesus had to say. Now these men, they were experienced fishermen. These were men who had grown up on those very waters of the Sea of Galilee. These were men who knew very well how quickly and violently storms could come down, winds could come down the heights and the hills surrounding the lake, and brew up a violent storm on that lake. They knew that water well. They knew that Sea of Galilee well. They'd also listened to the Lord Jesus. They listened to what he had to say about trust, about faith, trusting in him, and so they all got in the boat. They listened to what he said. They got in the boat just as he was. He started taking them across the lake. It's slow journey across the lake. No questions asked. They just did it because the Lord asked them to do that. Faith seems easy when the seas are calm and the sun is shining. Yet what happens when the seas get rough and a big, violent storm comes rolling in and everything seems to get thrown into chaos? Mark tells us what happened. A furious squall came up and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Furious, ferocious winds blew down from the heights, swirling around in the lake basin. Waves grabbed hold of the boat, battered away at it again and again and again, threatening to swamp the boat, threatening to sink it there. And Jesus' disciples, they pulled at the oars with all their might, with every fiber of their being, trying to get across that lake, fighting against the storm. What was Jesus doing? Jesus was tired. He was exhausted. He was fast asleep on a cushion at the back of the boat. Part of the boat that's the most stable part of the boat. He was there, fast asleep amid all the chaos around him. He was exhausted. He didn't want to be woken up even though all that storm was raging around him. Now, the disciples, like I said, they had listened to Jesus' teaching. They had listened to what he had to say about faith, about trusting in him, about trusting him in his word even when times are tough. So what did they do? Natural reaction is, go to Jesus. Jesus will help us. So they woke him up. And it wasn't a gentle, Lord, please, can you wake up, help us? No, it was a violent, blaring alarm as things were all going crazy around them. Lord, teacher, don't you care if we drown? Don't you care if we're destroyed and this boat goes to the bottom of the Sea of Galilee? Help us. Save us. Get up. Their natural reaction was typical of the natural reaction of every human being to danger. Worry, fear, uncertainty, maybe even a little panic. If Jesus wasn't going to do something about the storm, the least he could do is throw us back into the oar just along with the rest of them trying to fight that storm and get to the other side of the lake. They wanted him to save them. And if he was going to do that, they had to wake Jesus up, right? Well, the disciples had listened to what Jesus had to say about faith, about trust in the Lord, about trusting in the Lord even when times are tough, but they had forgotten something that Jesus had taught them earlier. They had forgotten. When they needed him, they went looking for superheroes, swoop in and save the day. But they had forgotten that God was sleeping in their boat. The exhausted Jesus sleeping in the back of that boat seemed so human, so run-of-the-mill, so ordinary. It was so ordinary that the disciples had forgotten about his divinity. They had forgotten that the God of heaven and earth was sleeping in that boat. Yes, Jesus had come into this earth and he was going to die someday, but he wasn't going to die at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. He was going to die on a cross at his appointed time. His very presence in that boat guaranteed that they were going to make it across the lake and not drown and die that day. A fellow pastor described Jesus in this situation this way. He who sleeps is he who reigns from all eternity. He who takes his pillow and rests in the stern is he who sees all, knows all, possesses all power, and uses all power to save. He is weak to take our place, he is strong to save. Whether he slept or strained at the oar, he was the one through whom the seas were made and by whom the ocean's boundaries were set. Jesus got up, rubbed the sleep from his weary eyes, even as a storm raged around them. But what did Jesus do? Did he look at the storm and get filled with fear and worry and panic? Fear, worry, and panic all come from sinful human hearts. Jesus is sinless. He stood up and faced the storm. Now, did Jesus rebuke his disciples right then and there for their weak faith? I mean, if their faith was truly strong, they would have just kept going, never woken up Jesus, let him sleep, and they would have made their way across the lake. Jesus doesn't rebuke them there either. Instead, Jesus heard their prayer. He saved them. Jesus muzzled the wind. He rebuked the waves of the sea with two words in Greek: quiet, silence. At that very moment, the wind stopped. The seas stopped roiling around and stopped battering the boat. The waves calmed down, and in that moment, as soon as he was done talking, the great storm became a great calm instantly. Only then did Jesus turn to his disciples. Why are you so afraid? You still have no faith? Now, these disciples had never seen anything like this before, and at that moment, a great terror filled their hearts because the light bulb suddenly went on who had been sleeping in their boat the entire time. They had seen no man, no teacher, no hero ever do what Jesus did, and they knew of no man, no hero, no teacher who spoke and the wind and waves obeyed. And that was the Jesus who was in the boat with them. Faith seems easy when seas are calm and the sun is shining. Faith is faith, whether it's weak or strong. But how strong our trust is at any given moment, it varies. There are times, there are days, and you can think of those days when you could get out of the boat and walk on water. And there are other days when you feel like you're going to drown inside the boat. You know what I'm talking about. Days when the seas get rough and the winds roar ferociously and a great big violent storm comes rolling in and tears everything out of your control. At such troubled times in your life, what's your natural response? What's your gut instinct? Fear? Worry? Uncertainty? Maybe even panic? You feel like those disciples throwing everything you can into rowing that boat and trying to survive, trying to get the water out of your boat, out of your sinking boat? You look to Jesus like you're looking for a superhero who can get his strength behind the oars and help you get to the other side. You forget who is sleeping in your boat. I know I do. I fail to remember who's in the boat with me. I fail to remember that God, who created the heavens and the earth, the seas, and the dry land, is there with me in the boat, even if it seems like he's sleeping. I fail to trust in the Lord who can do anything. The Lord who has rescued me already from sin and from death and from hell. I fail to trust in that Lord and that God, who is the Lord of the church, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, the Lord of life and death, the Lord of the seas and of dry land, the Lord who is there with me in the boat, the Lord who will never leave me. Now, Martin Luther once said the church needs to remember that Christ is in the boat even if he's sleeping, and that is really all that matters. We don't need a comic book superhero. We need the one who is right here with his church, with his people, with individual believers like you and me, here with us in word, water, and meal. We need to remember this. Have no fear. Jesus is here. When you get tired and weary with the troubled seas of this life and you're uncertain about what's going to happen in the future, have no fear. Jesus is here. When the storms and waves and winds of this life grab hold of you and just batter away, have no fear. When you're afraid or worried or panicked in your unguarded moments, have no fear. Jesus is here. When you don't know what to do, when you're wrestling with uncertainty, have no fear. Jesus is here. Even when it seems like Jesus is unconscious of what's going on in your life, you can still have no fear because Jesus really and truly is still here with you. The Lord who makes the wind and the waves obey is certainly still here for you. And that, my friends, is a true superhero. Far greater than anything we'll ever see on the big screen. A superhero, the one who brings peace, no matter how violent the storms of this life. The one who removes your fear because he is always here. The one who is still God, no matter how human he seems. That's your Savior. That's your God. That's the one who is with you in your moment. Dear friends, when the storms of this life rage around you, don't look to yourself. Don't